Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're going to create a vertical box and whisker chart in Microsoft Excel. And we're going to have a look at some things related to it, including how to interpret it and also how to deal with the different formulas Quartile Inc. and Quartile X. So I have some data here on order numbers and delivery times in days, and I want to create these as a box and whisker chart. So I'm going to start by selecting my data. It is in rows B2 to B50. So I'm just selecting these cells here. We're going to the insert option. We're going across here to the statistic charts, which are available in Excel 2016 and later. And we're just going to choose box and whisker. So I'm going to start working with my chart. Let's just make it a little bit taller. I want to make it a little bit thinner so I don't have such a large box here. I'm going to take out the chart title, and I'm also going to just remove the x-axis. So all I've got here is the data plotted in a box and whisker chart. If I right click this here and go to Format Data Series, I can make the fill a little bit lighter. I think that's going to help us see something that is in the middle of this chart here. So let's just do that. So what we have here is what's called a box and whisker chart. Now the important thing, having created it, is to understand exactly what you've done. So we've got some elements here. We've got a box in the middle and the whiskers. The bottom whisker here is the minimum point, excluding any outliers. Now there are no outliers below this, so this is actually going to be the minimum value in our data. Here at the bottom of the box is quartile 1, then in the middle is quartile 2, and at the top is quartile 3. These are the 25, 50 and 75 percentiles. Half of your data is in this area. This is the median line here, and this little X here is the mean or the average. And then we have the maximum value, but it's only a maximum value excluding outliers. And you'll see here that we've got a couple of outliers in our chart. So it's not the maximum value in our data set, it's the maximum value excluding outliers. So let's have a look at some of these values ourselves. Just going to move my chart out of the way. And the Q0 or minimum value we can get by creating a formula which is equal quartile, and at this point we're going to face quartile excluding and quartile including. Now I've got a box here that will help you understand these a little bit better. So Quartile Inc. is going to return the exact same values as if you use the formula quartile. It's going to give you minimum, Q1, Q2, Q3 and maximum values. It's best for analyzing an entire data set, and it's most likely to be the one that you want to use if you don't know which one to choose. So if you're just analyzing a data set, it's probably Quartile Inc. that you want to use. Quartile X is only going to return Q1, Q2 and 3, so the percentile values in here. It won't return maximum and minimum values because they're technically excluded. This is the best formula for statistical analysis and for matching results with applications such as Minitab. If you need to use it, you probably already know that you need to use it because you understand what it is. For most purposes, probably Quartile Inc. is going to be just fine. So let's go back to our function and let's complete it. So I'm going to choose Quartile Inc. I'm going to select over my data, or I can type it in. It's probably easier for me to type it in. I know it's in cells B2 to B50. I'm going to hit the comma, and then for the minimum value I'm just going to select this, and what it does is it puts a 0 in the formula. I'll add my close bracket, and this is my minimum value. It's showing up here. Now I can take this same formula, copy it, go into this next cell, right click and paste it. And in this case I want to use the quartile 1 or the 25th percentile. So I'm just going to type in here the argument 1, and so that's going to give me the Q1 or 25th percentile. That's this value here. If I repeat that, paste my formula in and change this to 2, then we're going to get the 50th percentile or the median. Here it is, 4. Going to do this again, and I'm going to find quartile 3. That's 5. We've got a problem here. What's happening here is that the formula for quartile 3 isn't matching our box plot. Let's see why. I'm going to right click on my box plot and choose Format Data Series. And here's the issue. There are two different ways of creating a box plot, and the default is to use exclusive median. But we just talked about the fact that inclusive median is probably the one that you want to choose. So I'm going to set my box and whisker plot to show using the quartile calculation inclusive median. And you'll see now that the quartile 3 line has realigned to what we just calculated in our formula. This is just a sort of heads up. You will want to check to make sure in your data series that the box and whisker plot is actually using the calculation that makes best sense to you. And in our case, we already talked about inclusive median being probably the best for most people, and so that's what we're going to make sure that our box and whisker plot actually shows that. Let's go back and paste this in and find the Q4 value. Now in this case, the Q4 value or maximum is this value up here. It is the outlier, even though you'll see that the whisker finishes at 8. And the reason for this is that these whiskers are the maximum value excluding outliers, not including outliers. So the outliers are shown here at 9, 10 and 11, and our maximum for the chart excluding outliers is 8. You'll see here that that's not the exact same value as we're seeing here, so just be aware of how that's calculated. Now the mean or average is this point here. Let's go and calculate that. And it's 4.4 something. You can see it's on the chart here. If you don't want to see it, right click your chart, go back to Format Data Series, and you'll see here that you can show mean markers or not. If we turn that off, we won't see the mean markers. You'll see here too that you can show the outlier points or not. So you need to make a decision as to whether it's appropriate to show those outlier points or not for your chart. The other calculations that you might be interested in completing with box and whisker charts is what's called interquartile range and calculating where your outliers would lie. Now interquartile range is the difference between this value and this value here, so Q3 and Q1. So to calculate, I'm going to hit the plus sign. I'm going to select Q3. I'm going to subtract from it the value in Q1 and press enter. So the interquartile range for this chart is 2. So anything that is an outlier is going to be calculated as 1.5 times or 1.5 times the interquartile range added to this value here. So let's go and calculate firstly 1.5 times the interquartile range. We can do this really easily in our heads, but it's probably better to write it as a formula. So what I'm going to do is to multiply this value by 1.5, and obviously it's 3. So to get the top of the whisker here, we're going to say that anything greater than Q3 plus our IRQ times 1.5 is an outlier. So I'm going to again hit the plus sign, and we're going to add 3 to the Q3 value. So anything greater than 8 in our data is going to be considered an outlier. And anything less than this value here minus 1.5 times the interquartile range will be an outlier in the opposite direction. So I'm going to take the Q1 value in this case, and I'm going to subtract from it the interquartile range times 1.5. So basically anything that is 0 or less is an outlier, and given that our delivery time is measured in days, it's impossible for us to have a negative amount of days. So we're never going to have outliers down here in this area, but we could potentially have outliers in terms of delivery days that are excessive. Now just before we go, we're going to do a sample calculation using Inc and using X for quartile 3, just comparing them. We already have the inclusive one down here, so let's just go and get that, and I'll copy it and place it in this cell here. This is the Quartile Inc calculation for the third quartile. Just going to paste it again here, but this time I'm going to change it to X. And here you can see that for this particular set of data, the Q3 or the 75th percentile is very different depending on whether you're including or excluding that mean. Let's right click this and set this to exclusive median, and here you can see the result. This is the Q3 value using the excluding calculation rather than the including calculation. So just be really 100% sure of what you're doing when you're creating these charts and making sure that you're using the calculation that makes best sense to you. If you like carefully researched content like this, clearly presented in a step-by-step format so that you can get great results every time, then you'll love my other YouTube videos. So give this video a thumbs up and click to subscribe to the channel. And on the screen now, you'll see a video that I've handpicked for you to watch next.